Today on Locked On Rockies, stop me if you've heard this one before. 10 plus strikeouts for the Colorado Rockies in another loss.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 26th day of September in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel as well, where you can find all the videos. You can find all sorts of cool stuff over there. Every time you like a video, every time you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you are helping the show grow. So really do appreciate that. Today on the Locked On Rockies podcast, we're going to talk about a disappointing second game in the series, and basically summing up this series highlights why the Rockies have lost so much this year and what the issues are that the Rockies need to correct going forward. We're also going to talk a little bit about this piece that Thomas Harding put out about Kris Bryant right now and his struggles as he tries to recover. He's got a new workout plan, but I think this was an important read and an important mindset, or an important look into a guy that we've all criticized, and performance-wise and health-wise and everything and contract-wise, that criticism has been earned. But this is still a guy that's going through it. This is still a guy that's whole world has completely turned upside down and changed since he left Chicago. And I think that's important context. I think that it's not going to change everything. And it doesn't change the fact that the Rockies are still facing tough decisions with Kris Bryant. But he gives some insight into how hard things are right now for him. And I think that's important. It's important to listen. It's important to, because he's earned that right as through his performance throughout his career. He's earned that right for us to listen. The patience is thin. The expectations need to remain intact for Kris Bryant. Absolutely. But this is at least, I think, when you can humanize the game a little bit more, when you can remind yourself that there are people playing this game. And like I said, the health concerns and then the actual performance on the field have mixed into it. It makes sense to be frustrated with how the Kris Bryant experience has gone in Colorado. I have been at the front of that. But I just do think as fans, it's a good reminder for us to read these pieces. This is why it's important for people to be for people to be in the clubhouse, for people like Thomas Harding to be around the team. These type of stories are why it is important for places to have people covering the team. No matter their record, no matter what's going on, you don't get insight into this type of stuff if you don't have people covering the team and covering the team with such passion and such professionalism like we have with Thomas Harding and a lot of the other Rockies media. I think that's part of the conversation as well. It is important for us to know how important it is that there is still Rockies media, that there is still people that want and go out and tell stories about the Colorado Rockies and the players on the team. Okay. Long-winded intro, I got that, but let's dive into everything today. Before we do, just got to remind you that today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any major league, of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. So, I want to start with the game last night. And if you were listening to the game, you might have heard the broadcast talk about, basically, here's the situation with the Rockies. The Rockies as a team, when you take the amount of pitching and amount of strikeouts the Rockies pitching staff has accumulated, and then you take the amount of strikeouts the offense has given up or allowed, struck out, whatever the proper grammatical term is, Combine them together into basically like a big strikeout stat. I can't remember officially what they were talking about it, but that's basically how it was working. And they spent a significant amount of time on the broadcast talking about this. The Rockies are like minus 500 in that, meaning the Rockies have struck out basically 500 more times than the Rockies pitching staff had struck batters out this year. That is so bad. The Rockies averaging 10 strikeouts a game. The Rockies going through this. We can talk about a good September. We've talked about the silver linings, but we're not going to ignore the fact that this team can't stop striking out, and that's a problem. It is such. I mean, I understand baseball has so many strikeout hitters, and hitting is hard, but man, it's as if the Rockies are getting can't even hang in there. It's as if the Rockies just have no way of picking up and catching things. And then when they do make contact, weak contact on ground balls and double plays when they do have runners in scoring position. Like that game last night is just, the whole series has just been yuck. It's another example of one step forward and what feels like two steps back for the Rockies. Good solid homestand going into a road series in which you were in every game against the Dodgers and fighting tooth and nail. And then you have this the Cardinals roll into town, and it's just been completely lackluster. It's been a lack of, I mean, there's just I don't know exactly how to put my finger on it, but it's just so fascinating that a guy like a guy like Eric Fetty can come in and give you 10 strikeouts over 7 innings. Why I'm so frustrated as a fan is it's like, why is this happening at this rate? Is it just the fact of the matter? Again, it goes back to that prep. It goes back to adjustments. Why do the Rockies look so outmatched time and time again when from a striking out perspective? From a why are they so bad at striking out? Why are they so why? And it's just like strikeouts are just the worst outs, just the worst possible outs, and yet the Rockies are just unable to put themselves in a position where they're seeing the ball well, they're seeing that they're and locking in. Rockies struck out 11 times in the game yesterday. Then let's see, in the game in the opener, the Rockies struck out, let's see, what is this? Another 10 times in that game. And the broadcast brought up a good point. These are games at home. These are bad strikeout numbers at home where everyone talks about the ball doesn't move as well. It's uncomfortable for these people to play here. It's this, it's that, it's boom, it's this, it's this. So what gives? What gives with the Rockies when you're the team that plays the most in this unfriendly environment, in this environment that has weird things? You should be more prepared. You should be a dominant team at home. And for the past couple of seasons, we've seen the Rockies have not been that juggernaut at home like they need to be. We talked about how how the Rockies had a shot at going 500 to finish out the season at home. That ain't going to happen anymore. You lose this game, and you're looking at a situation in which you could fall to 8 games, 9 games below 500 at home. If you lose out, not only is that an embarrassing way to finish the season, mind you, but you would fall to pretty significantly under 500 at home. You're already 5 games below 500 at home, as opposed to being close to 1 game below 500. If you had won these first 2 games, other teams should not come into Coors Field and dominate the Rockies. Doesn't matter who's in the lineup. It should be a place that is so weird, according to all of this, the stuff and all of the stuff we hear. It should be so weird and so hard for these pitchers to come in and pitch at Coors, yet the Rockies still strike out double digits and 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 double digits. It's maddening. And again, and it goes back to, it's just like, if you're going to trot out the vets and you're not going to just go full young guy rosters, then they need to perform. They need to step it up. And there's been some stuff. Shunk's getting in a nice little groove here, doing this job, having a good couple of stuff, filling in for Rodgers. Nolan Jones picks up a couple of hits yesterday. But where are you at, Ryan McMahon? I know you got a hit. But again, you cannot be that fourth hole spot when you have the approach at the dish that Ryan McMahon has right now. Just can't. I would rather Michael Toglia hit in that spot. How many times have we had this conversation? This is why when we're talking about the frustrating things with the Rockies, when we're talking about the issues, strikeouts have never gone away. The Rockies strike out a lot even when they win. And to be so mismatched, to have 500, I guess it was shortly a little below. If I'm understanding the stat correctly, if I'm understanding and following what was on the broadcast, to have 500 more strikeouts as an offense compared to your defense, and they gave the example of the Padres being the best. They're at like plus 384. When it's that bad, when it's that lopsided, when it's that open, when the gap between the Rockies and the rest of the league is that wide, you have a big problem. And I just don't know, again, if this is going to resolve itself. Is this going to get better with the roster that the Rockies have, with the coaching staff that the Rockies have, with the approach that the Rockies have? Is it going to get better? There's not enough time for us to see in this season, but you can't go out and end this season on you had a chance to get close to finishing above at or above 500 at home to finish the season, and a shot to avoid 100 losses. And the response has been a 3-game losing streak in 2 out of the 3 games in which the Rockies have just not been competitive enough, have not been clutch enough. The lack of clutch gene on this team is astounding. Because games like yesterday, it's just like is where you throw your hands up and you're just kind of like, why is this happening? Why is this happening like this? If they don't stop striking out at the rate that they do, they'll be scraping the bottom of the barrel of not only the NL West, but baseball for a long time to come. You cannot strike out at the rate that the Rockies do, and you cannot not strike out people at the rate that the Rockies do. It is a nasty combination that leads to, 100 losses. All right, let's talk a little bit about this piece from MLB.com and get some insight into Kris Bryant from Thomas Harding here. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. As I'm trying to fix my hat here. It's got my bill's a little weird. Anyway, quick break and we'll be right back. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, and it's super simple. All you got to do is pick more or less. More strikeouts, less walks, more hits. You choose the players. You choose the stats. You choose more or less, and you can watch the winnings roll in. You can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. And PrizePicks is the best way to get into the action in most states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your picks does not hit. Download the PrizePicks app today. That's PrizePicks on the App Store. And download and use that code LOCKEDONMLB. And get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Nobody's taking your big waiver wire pickups. No one's going to be able to take the people that you want to play away from you. That's the game at PrizePicks. Use that code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day. Get your Rockies play-by-play action all season long on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. And for your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB and Locked On A's here as we wind down the season and wind down baseball in Oakland, California. All right. We were talking about the strikeout problems. We talked a lot about that, man. It is just a total bummer. Rockies tied in hits with the Cardinals last night, but instead down or lose by 3. It's been kind of dink-dunked in this series. It hasn't been too much. Like when the big innings have happened for the Cardinals, it hasn't necessarily been the most, the biggest slams and big home runs allowed and things like that. It's been the Cardinals just timely hitting and finding the right spots here as we are entering the final 4 games of the 2024 season. And before we dive into looking at the final game and all that stuff, I really encourage folks to go check out this piece on MLB.com. Bryant revamps workouts after revelations about his back. And basically, Thomas Harding sets the stage here and follows up with him after seeing Kris Bryant's new workout plan that he has been going for in the last 4 weeks. But then here's one of the quotes that that Bryant follows up with. "I'm not doing too good," Bryant said. "I'm trying my hardest." Chronic back issues held Bryant to 37 games this year after he played 80 last year and 42 in 2022. The first year of a 7-year, $182 million contract that has been more injured list and rehab than stats for the back of his baseball card. Bryant acknowledged reaching the mountaintop at the start of his career, National League Rookie of the Year in 2015, World Series champ, and NL Most Valuable Player in 2016. "I totally turned the page on that Cubs chapter of my life," Bryant said. "I want to have a new and better one here. I'm always striving for better things. There are many nights where I sit there crying myself to sleep. It sucks, sitting here watching games knowing I can't contribute in any way. I guess I can contribute by talking. I'm struggling really bad with this, and I can't wait to get back out there." I mean, it's the reality there. That is the reality check. It's something that, while it doesn't absolve, the analysis of his Rockies tenure. These stories matter because it does humanize the people. It reminds you that when you sit here and you yell into a microphone and when you do things like that, there are people on the other side of these things. In sports, too often we can allow our fandom and allow whatever our internal GM brain to think that we know the right calls, we know the right decisions, we know how to handle things, we can handle the things. These stories and these types of tough decisions are why I could never be a major league GM, why I could never be a guy that makes these type of tough decisions. It takes a special person to be able to, and special is the right word, because you have to be able to have the courage to make tough decisions and business decisions and be unpopular and take criticism. But you also have to be able to be a human being and see the other side and understand that like, you have to imagine, like, we're frustrated. I can only imagine how frustrated Kris Bryant is when it's World Series championship, Rookie of the Year, MVP, boom, boom. I mean, you are hitting and you are off to the races. You one of the top rated free agents, all this hype, all of this stuff. And then for it to go the way it's gone, for the way the Bryant experience in Colorado to go, where over half of your time you haven't even accumulated a full season's worth of playing time, it has to hurt. It has to be a tremendous amount of frustration and pain to know that you are capable of the best, capable of being the best in baseball, MVP, most valuable player. But for your body to betray you, but for your mind to betray you, and for new opportunities to not only work out or not work out so far, but to go so poorly. The mental battle that Kris Bryant has to be facing is huge. And let's not ignore the fact that if he is able to stay healthy as a DH and he's able to contribute on the offensive side, he can add to this lineup still. He can be someone that can add something to this team. He can fill the Charlie Blackmon-esque role that the Rockies need next year. A veteran DH who's going to be an impact on the offensive side, and you don't need to worry about the lack of defense. But it's just like I think it's important for us as fans to hear these stories, to hear this stuff. And listen, I'm not asking you to like completely change everything and stuff. This is perspective. This gives you some insight into what is going on with Kris Bryant, a new workout program, completely frustrated with himself and trying to get back into a position where not only can he compete, but compete consistently and be someone that can help support the team that he wants to support. I know the money was the biggest reason probably, but he did come here for, a reason. Let's go back to Harding's piece here real quick. But when it comes to an impact, there's still a hole that could be filled by someone 6'5", 230 pounds. Bryant still is the best person to provide outsized production that leads to winning. I expect that of myself, and I'm going to work my tail off to get there, Bryant said. Who knows what the future entails for me? I know one thing. I'm going to set myself up to be in the best position to succeed. You have those thoughts like, am I going to get a hit again? You have those all the time. I've had them since I was a rookie too. You've got to be kind of a sick individual to play this game. We're just chasing that next moment, that next game, that next playoff game, that next World Series, the next person in the Hall of Fame. We're all chasing certain goals and truths, and I'm not going to stop. That's awesome. Like as we're talking about this, he's not giving up. And no matter, like I said, who knows what the future holds, but at least he's out there. At least he's doing something new with the Rockies. At least they're trying something different. At least they're doing, again, it doesn't negate everything. It doesn't negate the tough decisions that the Rockies might be faced if the future continues to pan out the way that it is. But it also still leaves the door open for possibilities. It still leaves the door open for opportunities. It still leaves a possibility of Kris Bryant being someone that can come back and contribute to this team, someone that doesn't strike out. And maybe if he's not hitting bombs, at least he can start hitting doubles in the gap. A guy that's been an MVP, a guy that worked to the highest point in baseball, should still have the work ethic to be able to get himself back into a position to contribute to this team. The question is going to be, how much time can you afford for that to happen? How much time can you allow to let Kris Bryant get where he needs to go, to get back where he needs to be, to get the health and strength? That's why for Kris Bryant, this offseason, it has to be just health, strength, all that stuff. It's got to be such a big focus on getting yourself into a position where you can play. And maybe it's even play 3 games out of the week. You have enough young guys. You have enough interesting things with the outfield. Now with no Charlie Blackmon, you're going to be setting yourself up in certain situations. Because we got a Jake Cave and Sam Hilliard reunion written all over the Rockies right now, in my opinion. I mean, they keep playing them throughout the week. They keep pinch hitting them. They keep doing these things. So I think that's a real possibility. If Kris Bryant playing defense cannot be the focus. It's got to be healthy back, and you are a DH that plays first base when Tolia takes a day off on Sundays. Something like that. And even in that situation, I'm still not so sure. But again, I just think that this was something that was good to read and something that gives some good insight there. That's on MLB.com. That's by Thomas Harding. You can go check that out there. Let me get that headline there for you here one more time so you can get that read correct. Striving for better things. It's the first thing right there on there. It's also on the Bryant revamps workouts after revelations about his back. So you can check that out on MLB.com. That's by Thomas Harding there. All right, let's talk about the game. Let's ask the question, where is Hunter Goodman and Drew Romo? And we'll do that coming up next here on today's episode of Locked on Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Booking.com. Yeah. Explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. Maybe it's L.A., maybe it's Phoenix, maybe it's San Diego. Maybe you want to go check some playoff baseball out there in the exciting times of California. It's a good time to go visit LA and San Diego, especially if it's getting a little chilly where you live. Booking.com's got you covered with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more. On Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival's city. Booking.com delivers exactly the right U.S. stay for you, and it can help you book at a stadium, close to a stadium, or the exact distance you want to be with the right amenities for you and your group. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. So use Booking.com to book the best trip for you. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. This is the Locked on Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked on Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. We're finding you all over the interwebs, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, and on the Locked on Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. All right, why Hunter Goodman and Drew Romo aren't getting consistent playing time this week is beyond me. Drew Romo, I don't think, has gotten really anything since like mid-September, which is kind of against the point of what we are doing. But, our good old buddy, not Kris Bryant, our buddy Bud Black loves to play them veterans, loves to give him a chance to, win the ball game, he says. I don't know. I just think this is a chance where these guys need to be on the field. These guys need to be getting playing time. And it's not like it's just weird. It just doesn't make sense why Stallings keeps getting it. Stallings is fine. Again, I think that bringing him back and having him be the veteran guy is a good call. He's caught last night, but why is he catching all the time? I mean, why aren't we using any of these guys? At least in the series, Hunter Goodman caught the finale against the Dodgers there. So I'm trying to go and find the, so at least, that happened. But in the one before that, Goodman was let's see who was catching in that game. Stallings caught in that game. I mean, why is Stallings catching all of these final games of the season? You can DH Stallings. Well, you can't DH Stallings. You have Charlie Blackmon this week. Never mind. But still, like, I'm sorry, man. Like, Jacob Stallings doesn't need to get all these games. It just like we Jake Cave's getting these pinch hits, things like these veteran guys. They've done their job this season. Let's just give some of these guys that you have not consistently gotten playing time this year, like Goodman, some time. Get Drew Romo another appearance behind there. It's just weird. I don't know. It just. I guess, Stallings puts you in a better position to win type of thing instead of playing time. But I don't know. That's just my question. Rockies playing a day game here, looking to get that 61st win, man. It has just avoided them now 3 games in a row. And it is going to be Kyle Freeland taking on Kyle Gibson here. Pretty similar pitchers, I would say, here in terms of numbers. The whip a little bit higher on Freeland's side, and so is the ERA. But Kyle's pitched less innings here than Gibson. Gibson 165 innings, 146 strikeouts in that time, so that's going to be a factor in this one. But here's another kicker, though. 65 walks. 65 walks in that time. Draw some walks. Get on base, and then do some damage. He's given up 22 home runs this year. This is not a pitcher that should come into Coors Field and feel comfortable and dominate you. You can't get swept here. Plain and simple, you can't get swept here. Defend your house. Step it up. Like this is a thing where it's like it's put a little fire under your belly to finish this, because it has looked lackluster for the first 2 games against St. Louis. Hey, coming up tomorrow, crossover, Locked On Cardinals, Locked On Rockies. We're going to break down the series, probably talk a little Arenado and Charlie Blackmon, just kind of revisit that and kind of just see the state of these two teams and what they're going to need to do in the offseason. I think two teams that this offseason is an important one for both of them. So we'll be breaking that down there with Locked On Cardinals. Be sure to stay tuned for that. But folks, that is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB, as Sully gets you covered for the postseason. And he's also breaking down all things Oakland A's and the final game in Oakland here on Locked On A's as well. For your Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, all available as well. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.